Welcome to the Everyday Citizens Tactical Podcast, Episode 12, News and Coming Events. My name is Jeremy and I will be your host. Let me start off by apologizing for missing the second podcast of October. I was out of town leading up to that episode's release for an annual trip I do with my local guys, and not to mention all of the farm activities that have been going on as we roll into fall. In this episode, I want to talk about some key current events that has a lot of people stirred up right now, where they're going to go in the future, and a little bit of a sneak peek at what is to come in 2023 for Everyday Citizens Tactical. So, without any more delay, let's jump in.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Straight the numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Straight the numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours.
Alright guys, long time no see. It's been almost exactly a month since we have done a podcast episode. And I've done a lot in my own personal life, and then also a lot that's going on behind the scenes for the business. Trying to expand right now with everything that's going on, and not to mention the economic issues we face as a company trying to start and grow in an industry that is already, really big as it is definitely proven to be a challenge. But nonetheless, I keep pushing on. A lot of 2022, especially towards the beginning, it was just me, and then kind of started to expand a little bit more. Got an instructor on, and another instructor on for the medical classes. Got another instructor for our new upcoming firearms class that we're going to be doing in 2023. And just trying to get more people involved as a whole. So, starting off with kind of some of the updates that are going to be coming for 2023. So the first being probably the biggest one is our trauma IFAKs are going retail. I went to this gun range that I've went to since I was a little kid here near my hometown, and kind of chatted it up with the owner that I've known for a while, very non-professionally, and talked about trying to get the IFAKs on the shelves. He said, yeah, we worked out a deal, and then I'm also trying to work at getting it on more shelves. Our IFAK was purposely created to fill a gap that I felt a lot of the industry lacked in. Other than some stuff you can get directly from North American Rescue, there's not a lot of IFAKs that you can get that you can put directly into like an IFAK pouch or anything like that. It seems like a lot of IFAKs that are sold aren't necessarily full to the standard that I believe should be set. Some of them are kind of skimmed down for whatever reason that may be, whether a producer is trying to cut costs and make more profit, or someone isn't trying to sell a full IFAK. I'm trying to sell outside of medications and a few other things, what is considered a standard issued trauma IFAK. So that's really cool that everything's trying to go retail on that end. And we do have another part of the line as far as the IFAKs go that I'm working on right now that will hopefully be out before Christmas. I would really hope so. And this is kind of medical, aimed towards more of supporting the everyday person and like your CCW style guys. Because the trauma IFAK is too big, especially to carry on your person on a normal basis. So we're trying to find ways to get medical in the hands of people who are just doing their everyday life. Carrying, if you're ready to take life, you should be able to save and preserve life. So definitely something coming in that end. Hopefully, once we get done with these samples and tests and everything that we're doing right now, we will be able to announce that and get it out before Christmas. That would be awesome. And then the 2023 classes. I know I've said it on YouTube and social media for a while now. Before Thanksgiving, we're going to have at least the first portion of our 2023 classes scheduled. I haven't really pushed on scheduling classes further than the last 6 months of 2023, only the first 6 months of 2023. But we have classes that are going to be scheduled in Indiana, Ohio, all over Kentucky. I mean, we're trying to branch out a little bit more. And it's hard still working full time as I am in the fire service, and then also my other instructors also working full time. So it's not like we can just drop everything and travel the country to a different state every week and teach a class like a lot of these people do. That would be awesome, but it's not a reality right now. But we are trying to expand. We are going to be doing a lot more driving to hopefully spread out class opportunities to people. And that's something that, I've always really worked towards. Is Everyday Citizens Tactical is not supposed to be a product company. It's supposed to be a training and culture company. We want to progress the skills and abilities of the citizen and bring it to a higher standard and get people to push to that higher standard. I talk about that a lot. If you ever see, whether it's on my personal page or the business page in the past, fitness videos or motivational stuff, I always talk about the standard and how there's no excuses, and that you must reach at least the standard, and then you must push past the standard. And that's something that I really stand by. For those that didn't know, the whole mess with Facebook and Instagram for our business is kind of scrapped for the time being. You can't share our website or some affiliated links directly on any Meta platforms. For whatever reason that might be. I don't know why, but you can't. So I do have my personal Instagram, which is, what is it? Jeremy_ECT_Instagram right now as a business kind of owner account. Sorry, I accidentally clicked something on. That is up right now. Will I ever be able to get the business back on Instagram? Hopefully. I've done some things offline that hopefully will protect me from getting deleted in the past and being caught in that, AI ban spree. Shout out to Comms and Logistics, who has been super helpful, not only just to my comm stuff, but also just a ton of other stuff tech and data wise. He's probably annoyed as hell with all of the questions I send him on a normal basis, because trying to self-teach yourself anything data and tech related when you don't have a background in data and tech is a pain in the butt. But he's been super awesome, so shout out to Comms and Logistics. We do have an episode with him, I think it was episode 6, where we do a really good introductory video on radios and some frequencies and just good all-around knowledge for newer comms people. So definitely go give that a listen. I know I got a lot of good feedback on that one so far. But as much as I didn't want to, we did create a TikTok. Why did I create a TikTok? Really, because it was the only platform that I was allowed on at that point. At the time we created the TikTok and I got my last Instagram ban, which was in the beginning of September, Twitter wasn't owned by Elon Musk yet, and it was pretty much a no-go to go to Twitter. Facebook and Instagram wouldn't let us on there, so the only other big place to reach out to people and find new people and build that following was TikTok. So we're on there. Not happy about it, but that's just kind of how life goes. As far as the podcast goes, I am going to be writing for my first 10 episodes. I tried to have a guest on all the time, which I really liked. I really like getting people on here and talking to people. And I'm going to look to hopefully get some more guests on here to kind of wrap up the end of 2022. Met some really cool people at the Deliver Fund Range Day, and I continue to meet cool people just on social media and whatnot. So hopefully we can get some more people on here and really continue to expand on different topics and build that library of knowledge that I've talked about in the past. Remember, guys, drink your water. All right. Let's talk about current events. People love to talk about current events, and the people who love to talk about current events the most are people who say they don't like to talk about current events. And you know what? That's okay. We're going to talk about them. And I try not to be a doomer, in a sense, as my buddy Max the Misfit likes to say. I try not to be a doomer. However, I do very much see reality for what it is. And I have the mindset of, if something sucks, trying to tell yourself that something doesn't suck because you think it will affect your mindset isn't always going to work depending on the context. Sometimes you just have to accept that things suck and be like, But that's okay, because it's going to get better, because I'm going to make sure that it gets better. So starting off with the current events talk that I kind of want to talk about is midterms. This comes out the day before midterms voting started. This episode is going to come out November 7th. It was recorded November 6th. So many people have different opinions right now on what is going to happen for the midterms. Realistically and historically, what happens, especially in a presidency that is unpopular, you see one of the either the House or the Senate flip in the midterms, or both, and then we have a big stalemate between the legislative and executive branch until we get to the next presidential election, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people are calling for a red wave in these midterms. Realistically, I would probably say that is going to happen. Not that whether the red team or the blue team is in charge is going to change anything. I'm sorry if that hurts anybody's feelings, but in the end, it really doesn't matter who's in charge. Red guy, red girl, blue girl. It's not going to matter. Very, very minute changes are going to occur. And with that being said, the situation that we've got ourselves into, whether you talk about the supply chain, inflation, foreign policy, all of that is the result of years and years and years of political decisions made by both red team and blue team. So that is just what it is. Debt skyrocketed under Bush, debt skyrocketed under Obama, debt skyrocketed under Trump, and debt skyrocketed under Biden. It's just what it is. But the thing that I am concerned about with these midterms, and this is just a theory, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, is there's been a lot of talk recently, specifically from our executive branch, about how we need to accept the results of elections. You have to accept the results of elections. You cannot question elections. Questioning elections is a no-go, which is very concerning leading up to an election where you can probably assume is not going to go in the favor of the team telling you don't question elections. There's already some funny business in the 2020 election, whether you think it was fully blown rigged or whatever it is. And again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But I find that a little concerning. But the biggest part that I find concerning about all of it happens on the community levels. Because if there is a big red wave over the next 2 years, and specifically leading up into the next presidential election, and specifically since, I've seen some news over the past few days that before Thanksgiving, Trump is supposed to announce his run for presidency in 2024. You have Ron DeSantis talking about, maybe hinting at running. So in my mind, the more hardcore leftist, the socialist side of all that, your Antifas, your really extreme BLM movements, and all your little communist groups, they're going to become more violent, more present, more organized, more and more and more. And again, regardless of how your politics align, whether it's guys in white cloaks, whether it's, guys with BLM signs, it doesn't matter. If there are people out in the streets in mass mobs targeting innocents to display signs of anger and hate and discontent, that is an issue. Politics aside, that is an issue for your community, and that is an issue for your safety, your loved one's safety on a normal basis. And I think after this election, regardless of how it goes, leading up to the next presidential election, seeing how 2020 went, things are going to get progressively worse. Specifically with the financial times we face right now. Crime is up like crazy. Historically speaking, crime increases as economic times become harder, and everything that falls in line with that. We have all these talks of shortages of different things, inflation, blah, 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 blah. Everything it all adds up. And as those things add up, more people get angry and more people feel like they have to do something. They don't know what to do with their hands. They just have to get out and they have to do something. And normally that turns to violence. And that normally means that someone is the unfortunate victim of that violence. So I cannot stress enough that A, you have good situational awareness, both in person and out of person, paying attention to news, social media, so on and so forth, and understanding areas that you probably want to avoid. But B, that you carry everywhere. It is not an option. And I don't mean it's a preference. I mean, it is not an option to not carry everywhere you go, because you don't get to pick when you use your concealed carry. You don't get to pick it. I hit on this briefly, in the latest YouTube video we put out. Things can happen anywhere. Things can happen in your car. Things can happen at the store. Things can happen at church. Things can happen in the gym. Things can happen at dinner on Saturday night when you're out with your significant other. And you decide, we're going to town. We're going to go to this really nice Italian place I know downstairs. Now, the next thing you know, you've got a mob of 600 or 700 people coming through and smashing shit. That is an issue. You need to be prepared to defend yourself. No one is coming. No one. No one is coming to save you. You are your own first responder. Because there eventually will come a time where there may not be first responders for whatever reason that may be. And, if you're in suburban America, you're less likely to have to worry about this. If you're in rural America, probably even less likely to worry about this. But specifically, those urban to urban suburban areas, this is an issue. Use 2020 as a reference. Everybody is so quick to forget the past. Everybody seems to think that the world will never shut down again for something like COVID. Oh, we'll never do that again. We'll never listen. You tell people about the absolute madness that was the riots of 2020. I mean, the true madness. You could take some footage side by side from Seattle, Chicago, Portland, all of these places, and put it side by side with videos out of like Erbil, Iraq, and Pakistan, and all these other places, and they wouldn't look any different. They wouldn't. I mean, it's just crazy. Nonetheless, you need to pay attention for this. And moving forward is, I think, political violence continues to pick up more as we move towards the next presidential election, specifically in 2024, if we make it to 2024. And that is why, as always, I stress you should, not only train with community members, but also just have good repertoire with your community members. And, nobody likes to be that person, but kind of put that idea, plant that seed in people's minds. You don't got to go organize the whole town. Kind of plant seeds here and there, and people start to think. And you'll realize as you conversate with people that you do on a normal basis, you come back later, and they mention something. They're like, oh, did you see this and this? And it's like, this person used to never think about these types of things. But these little seeds of conversation and ideas that I've been planting, it's making him more self-aware, so on and so forth. So try to do those types of things now. And then, of course, train with your local guys. You don't need a 600-man standing militia. You don't. That'd be really cool, but you don't. If you have a group of, 5 to 10 guys and their families, and you're like, hey, if anything happens to anybody's family, we roll up with the guys. We'll get the family out of there, no problem. Like, that is a good plan. Again, nobody is coming to save you. You are your own first responder. Act like it. And with all this, it kind of rolls right into all the other economic issues we face right now. Fuel, food, energy shortage, all of that kind of stuff. Right now, the big talk is, will we run out of diesel before Thanksgiving? Now, to my understanding, and I've listened to a lot of people talk about this, at the time this podcast was released, which again, this podcast came out 11/7, it was recorded 11/6. We're not going to run out of diesel by Thanksgiving. Well, the announcement that was made towards the end of October is that our diesel reserve is at a new low, and it only has 25 days worth of diesel in reserve. So if anything were to happen, refineries go offline, or there's a huge stall or complete stop to international oil trading, all that kind of stuff. If that kind of stuff were to happen, we have 25 days worth of diesel left. Now, during times where there are stalls, lags in oil production, oil trade, so on and so forth, it is to my knowledge that they pull from these reserves that are all throughout the country to supplement the supply, to keep prices down, and keep things moving until things pick back up, and then they refill it. Well, right now, what we're seeing is, as this reserve gets lower, small disruptions in the chain are becoming bigger issues, because they can't just pull from these reserves. It's like, oh, we can't pull from these reserves. We pull from these reserves. We're in a dangerous place. So, there may be, a shortage or an outage of diesel in your area for 2 or 3 days until things get to you. You may see prices start to go higher and higher because we can't just keep pulling from all these little pockets. We drained the strategic oil reserve this year for whatever it was, the 5 or 6 months that we did so. In the beginning of October, we stopped pulling the million barrels a day from the strategic oil reserve, which again, that million barrels a day does not fuel the economy. It just kind of supplements a little bit of a gap. It helps keep prices down a little bit. Obviously, gas and diesel have gone up significantly, but it helps keep things down a little bit. We've drained that. We're down to like 350 million barrels, I think. When Biden started office, we had over 700 million. So that obviously is an issue, and we can't do what we just did again because we'll run out in 5 or 6 months. And then if anything were to happen, our major government services and military are screwed when it comes to fuel and oil. So, long story made short, I don't think we're going to run out of diesel. We're just moving towards potentially running out of diesel. So keep that in mind. And if you don't already, keep gas or diesel, depending on what your vehicle runs on hand. I've made a TikTok about this in the past. I need to do a YouTube video on it. Keep like 10 to 15 gallons of gas minimum in your garage somewhere. Get 3 5-gallon jerry cans and put them in your garage. You can put stuff in your gas to treat it and it will last a really long time. Or you can just, put gas in those gas cans and in 6 months, put that gas in your truck and then go fill your gas cans. That's not a bad thing. Some of your guys' cars only have, 12 to 20 gallon tanks. So if you're a person that drives a truck, SUV, something like that, 10, 15 gallons, it's getting you a half tank. Like my tank's a 35 gallon tank, so that sucks. But keep fuel on hand. That's to get you out of where you need to be, so you need to be it. Like if something horrible happened today, and you have, let's say, like a quarter tank of gas, because you're like, my limit is normally, okay, I get down to a quarter tank of gas, I fill up. But you're just near that quarter tank, and something happens today, and it's time for you to go and get. You can either put that fuel in your vehicle and get to where you need to go, or you put that fuel in your vehicle and go. Regardless, keep fuel on hand so you can make those emergency, transportation drives. And then energy. I've seen a lot about like kerosene and all of that being really expensive in the Northeast because they use a lot of that for like heating their homes and whatnot in the winter. I feel so. My property runs off propane. We have a big propane tank. Stoves run on propane. Water heater runs on propane. The house heat runs on propane. Although I have a wood burning stove, so I don't use the house heater. Propane was really expensive. It cost me I think it was like $1,200 to fill my propane. It was expensive. It was really expensive. We have natural gas. Now, we as the United States, we produce a lot of natural gas, but other portions of the world do not. And the problem with this is if we look outside the United States, a lot of places, if you specifically look in Europe, are announcing that businesses will close from anywhere from 4 to 6 months through the key of winter because energy prices are too high to stay open for business. There was, especially back in like the beginning of October, there was a lot of food producers in Northern Europe that said we're closing down until, April. There was, even more like retail stuff and just things keep adding up. It's like, hey, we're shutting down. And if you're not a person that takes in information on a daily basis from a lot of sources over a lot of things for a consistent amount of time, you don't necessarily know a lot of these things. But all of these categories, world affairs, new wars, economy, logistics, supply, all of it, if you put all of it together and you're a person that absorbs information on all of it, you see how it's a really bad thing. Like I get a lot of information on like logistical type things because I find that very important. And outside of just not having a good worldwide harvest this past year, things are not looking good for 2023 at all because transportation and logistics and supplies is going to be through the roof. And we had a very, 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 very dry year this year. If we have a really dry year next year, that's not good. That's not good at all. And not to mention that, like I've said in the past, 2022, we're eating 2021's harvest. 2023, we're eating 2022's harvest. And 2022's harvest did not go well. You need to spend into this fall and winter, specifically around the holidays, but they have sales on a lot of stuff. You're baking and starting from scratch type cooking foods. You need to take this time and take a little bit of money, which I know is hard for everybody. We're all stretched thin right now. So many of us are stretched thin. Don't put yourself into a position where you feel stressed and have anxiety about your own economic or your own financial position. But take the time now and start putting extra food away. You need to put food away. You have to. And then this is the perfect time for you to be planning out 2023 food production. I've said this in the past. You do not have to have 50 acres of land to grow, food or have chickens or whatever it is. You can do something. Even if you live in a suburban neighborhood, you can put 2 raised beds, little 4x10s or 5x10s in your little fenced-in backyard that's on an eighth of an acre plot, and then you can grow tomatoes, peppers, some greens. Boom, you got salsa and spaghetti sauce, and then your other one, you can do potatoes. You can do so many things. You can do it. It's all about just doing it, and people need to realize that. And if you're in a position, you're in the city and you live in a condo or an apartment or something like that, I'm not talking about like my 21, 22-year-old people just getting started in the world living in an apartment. I'm talking about like you're a grown person living in an apartment, in a condo, and you're like, well, I can't do anything because I work in the city and I live in a 700 square feet apartment. Prioritize your life, man. You just got to think, what is going to be more important to you? Is your nice cushiony job in the city best for you and or your loved ones, or is getting a different job in a suburban area, or in a suburban area you can live in the rural area and just drive 25-30 minutes? Is that better for you? You got to think about what's best for you. Regardless, you can't make excuses. Something can be done. And if you're just absolutely not in a position to grow food, you better buy food and you better stock up on it. Because you never know something's gonna happen. Whether it's a natural disaster, the trucks stop driving. Maybe they go on, they all go on strike. We have the railroad strike that is still kind of leaning. Words are tough, guys. The railroad strike is still a thing that could possibly happen here in the beginning of November. I'm not quite up to date on what the situation on that is. I just know that it's still a possibility. And a lot of stuff gets moved by freight. Railroad. Rail. Sure. So what happens if the truckers go on strike? What if all the pilots that fly these hundreds and hundreds of cargo planes every day all over the world and all over the country go on strike? That's a major issue. And, so it doesn't take this, us getting nuked by Russia or socialist uprising or anything like that for you to just stop being able to go to the store. If you rely on if your entire life revolves around you going to the store every 4 or 5 days, you're wrong. And then we got war. Russia-China war, but then a bunch of other stuff. We have the issues with Serbia and Kosovo right now, Moldova, many small conflicts in Africa, in the Middle East, South America. We have issues with North Korea right now acting up. Unfortunately, that is just something is completely out of your hands and you cannot prepare for. Right now, Ukraine has done a decent job with the counteroffensive against Russia. I think this is all kind of part of the plan. Maybe not. I don't know. It's really hard to tell how Russia is truly doing right now because the media is so biased. At one point in time, they're going to tell you they're completely incompetent. We shouldn't worry about them and blah, blah, blah. And then the next second, they're like, oh, they're crazy. Oh, they got all this tech. Oh, they're going to nuke us. Ah. So it's hard to tell. I think people also forget what conventional warfare looks like. Since, Russia didn't win the war in 30 days like we did when we invaded Iraq, everyone's like, oh, Russia's completely incompetent. Like, I don't know if that's entirely true. They're not the greatest military in the world, but they are a big military, and they have a lot of weapons, they have a lot of tech. I could do a whole podcast over the whole Russia conflict. Nonetheless, it is escalating, and it will probably continue to escalate. I think World War III, as far as that goes, is completely unavoidable. It's just a matter of when. Especially, they're not talking a lot about Russia right now because of the midterms. It's been kind of quiet over there. But I have no doubt, specifically once winter rolls in and the new campaigns start with that, when the ground freezes over and the Russians can get off road, it will escalate. Recently, on the China-Taiwan front, some DoD personnel had said that they were moving up the expectation that China will invade Taiwan sometime between 2025 and 2027 to invading Taiwan in 2022 or 2023. And as you can tell, we're already at the end of 2022. For those that pay attention, China has moved a ton of troops and artillery and supplies to the southeast corner of China over the past couple months. And North Korea has, I think, I was talking about this with a buddy the other day. I feel like North Korea acting up aligns with China, because if China invades Taiwan and this giant war breaks out in the Pacific, it gives North Korea a go, as they are kind of loose allies, to go ahead and start the war with South Korea. Because it would be dumb of North Korea to sit around and wait for somebody to kick the crap out of China and then try to invade Taiwan at a future later date. And I think North Korea, doing as many missile tests as they have, they've been very precise when it comes to location-wise how and when they're making these tests. May align with that. But again, it's also hard to control and tell. Obviously, we have no control over it whatsoever. We're just here to watch the news and see what happens. But if it happens, it happens. I mean, it is what it is. I take that back. It's going to happen. Whether it happens in 2023 or 2045, it's going to happen. For decades, the U.S. has been saying, well, yeah, we're eventually going to go with China, which is the weirdest concept in the world, to sit around and say, yeah, in a couple years we're going to go to war with China, but not go to war with them right now. It's such a strange concept to me. China has been catching a lot of heat from the State Department recently. A lot of Chinese spies were arrested. They've had some diplomats kicked out of the U.S. It's been a little hot when it comes to the Russia-China nonsense. Brazil, wow. Folks, let's talk about Brazil. The news isn't talking about it, I think, because midterms are in a week. Brazil is a mess right now. Brazil might have a full-on civil war. This past presidential election in Brazil did not go well. The U.S.-backed and NATO-backed candidate won in Brazil. Surprise, surprise. And the country is kind of split as it is, but the country is not happy. They've been just rioting for well over a week now. The situation in Brazil is quite complex, and I've started to see less and less come out of Brazil, which I don't think is a sign that it's calming down there, but I think they have had scattered internet issues, but that may be a targeted affair as far as holding things back. As I sit here, I just continue to get updates over random things in the world. Oh, my buddy James actually just sent me something while I've been recording on this whole Brazil conflict in the past 10 minutes. It says, large amounts of Brazilian armed forces reportedly continue to arrive in Rio de Janeiro. Tonight, the forces appear to include towed artillery, armored vehicles, and special forces units. There's still been no word on specifically why they have been deployed in the city. And there's a bunch of videos of these convoys of military vehicles showing up. So obviously, the Brazil issue is going to be really big. And Brazil is kind of one of those things right now where it's a major power in South America, and whether they choose to side with U.S. and NATO or BRICS more sided as Russia China side is going to be huge on the military front as far as South America goes. And a lot of places in South America right now don't like the U.S. And they're having a lot of like conservative versus socialist conflicts right now, kind of like the whole world is. If you look at the whole world right now, we're going to get into politics here, just real briefly. If you look at the whole world right now, there's pretty much this brewing international conflict between people that have had enough. They want to go back to the way things were. They're more old school, so on and so forth, against these, newer movements and ideas that align with socialism and progressive ideology and so on and so forth. And some people are just fed up with it. And you can only push somebody for so long. People always say that, things can't happen here or things can't happen there, but everybody has a limit. Everybody has a limit. And unfortunately, I think some people are purposely pushing others towards finding out what that limit is. And it's not a good thing. I don't know, guys. But, like I always say, the future may seem dark and depressing, but it's only going to be for a little while. The world is not going to end. I'm sure those that lived through the Great Depression, thought life was horrible. I'm sure some people who, lived through the Slavic wars in like Serbia and whatnot in the 90s thought the world was ending. I'm sure people who lived in France during World War II thought the world was ending. But things eventually get better. Unless we all literally just nuke each other off the planet, which apparently seems to be a more common idea now, things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. They always do. And if they don't, it's not our problem anymore. That's just kind of how you got to think about it. Don't get wrapped up in too much. Don't get wrapped up in it too much. Some of us do. I get wrapped up in it too much sometimes. And as a person who does that, I need to tell you, don't do it. Continue to prepare, buy quality gear, train, study, take care of those in your life, maintain good social relationships. Tell your woman, your lover, or your husband, your man, whatever it is, And that's how we win in the end. Keeping good relationships, establishing community, and taking care of one of another in the end is how we win. And that's what we all need to realize. So that's really it, guys. That's the podcast for tonight. A little bit more of a rant tonight. There's a bunch of things I wanted to talk about. Hopefully we'll have a guest on for the next one, which will probably come out before Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holidays, guys. Whether you're a holiday person or not, enjoy the people around you. Enjoy the food and feasts while you can, if you're in a position to enjoy food and feasts. If you're not, I hope you find happiness in other ways. I would like to give one shout out to my boy Max. He's doing big things over there, and I can't 100% intelligently talk about it. But he has officially started Misfit Group, which is his business. And they also just came out with a new episode on the Undesirable Individuals podcast, which he dives into what Misfit Group is going to be and what his goals are and whatnot. So you should definitely head over there. The Undesirable Individuals podcast. Give my boy Max a listen. Max was one of the big influencers besides Dave that got me into actually starting the podcast. And he's one of the better best friends that I've made over social media. And you can make really good friends over social media. I've made tons of good friends over social media. Shout out to all my good friends. But, man, that's really it, guys. Prepare, train, study, do the things. Like I always say, guys, train hard, train often.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down and I'ma